The smell of roasted chicken was rooting to mix with the scent of Paul's cologne, a clean scent he'd worn since our courting days. It clung to his sweater, a faded navy blue one with a small hole at the elbow I kept meaning to in. The table was set with the good china, the one with the gold rim that only came out for holidays and, apparently, for the strategic deployment of good news. Clara said they'd be here by 6, I said, smoothing the white tablecloth for the third time. She texted me an hour ago. Paul grunted, not looking up from the television. The volume was low, but I could still hear the frantic drone of a sports commentator. Traffic's always bad on a Friday. She knows that. I told her we could have just done this on Sunday. A nice, relaxed Sunday lunch. But she insisted on tonight. I walked over and picked up the remote, turning the television off. Paul, our daughter is coming for dinner. She specifically said she and Mark had something to tell us. Put the game away. He sighed, a long, drawn-out sound that made me feel like the nagging wife in an old sitcom. He ran a hand over his thinning hair. All right. What's the big deal? They're probably just telling us they're going on another vacation. They just got back from that trip to the mountains. It wasn't a vacation, it was a work conference for Mark. And I don't think it's that. Clara sounded. I don't know. Serious. She had that tone, the one she gets when she's trying to be brave. He gave me a look that was tired and affectionate. You're reading too much into it, Susan. She's a grown woman. She's been a grown woman for a good while now. What could be so serious that they need to come all the way across town on a Friday night? I didn't have an answer for that. I just had a knot in my stomach that had been there since I'd gotten her call. At 32, Clara was an extension of me, a person I could read like a weather map. And the forecast for tonight was stormy. Just as I was about to reply, I heard the rattle of the front door. The lock was old and needed to be replaced. Paul kept saying he'd get to it, but he never did. The sound of it was as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. Mom, Dad, Clara's voice came from the hallway. A bright, overly cheerful note that immediately confirmed my FIRS. In the dining room, Suive RT. I called out, my voice pitching higher to match her energy. Paul finally stood up from his armchair, smoothing his own sweater. They came into the room together. Clara was wearing a SMART, the RK blue blazer, the one I knew she'd bought for her office job, which meant she'd come straight from work. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she looked tired, the shadows under her eyes a little darker than they'd been when I'd seen her last week. Mark was right behind her, his phone clutched in his hand. He always had it on him, like a security blanket. He was in a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, and he gave us a smile that was too quick, too practiced. Hi, Dad, he said, giving Paul a stiff pat on the shoulder. Hi, Susan. Something smells amazing. Roast chicken and potatoes, I said, gesturing to the table. I know it's your favorite. He nodded, but his eyes had already drifted back to his phone for a fraction of a second. He pocketed it quickly. Looks great. We all sat down. It felt awkward, the four of us in a room that was supposed to be for family. ISTA route passing the serving dishes around, my movements brisk, trying to fill the silence with motion. So, I said, spooning a generous portion of mashed potatoes on a Clara's plate. How was your week? Did you finish that big project you were talking about? It was fine, Mom. It's done. Clara's answers were clipped. She was poking at her chicken with her fork. How's work? Still dealing with the audit? It's a process, I said, forcing a smile. I didn't want to talk about work. The whole thing was a web of lies and numbers that was making my head spin. Nothing you need to worry about. Paul, bless his heart, tried to fill the gap. He looked at Mark. So, Mark, your company is really taking off from what I hear. The logistics business, all those trucks, it's a booming field, isn't it? Mark looked up, a flicker of something like pride in his eyes. It's a competitive market, Paul. It's about efficiency, about being lean. You have to be ruthless. Ruthless, Paul echoed, his brow furrowed. That sounds a bit aggressive for moving boxes. Mark gave a short, sharp laugh. It's a bit more than moving boxes. It's $1 billion, our industry. If you're not aggressive, you get crushed. It's the same in any business. I'm sure Susan understands. He looked at me. I felt my face heat up. We have our own stresses at the firm, Mark. We're not moving boxes, We're moving money. It's not a game. Of course it's a game, he said, his tone dismissive. It's the biggest game there is. And in a game, you need to be on the winning team. Clara put her hand on Mark's arm. Mark, we didn't come here to talk about work. We have to talk about something, he replied, shaking her hand off. We're all sitting here like it's a funeral. The tension was so thick I could rely breathe. I could feel the good china beneath my fingers, the COL, familia, our pattern. This was supposed to be a nice dinner, Clara, honey, I said, focusing on my daughter, trying to tune out Mark's bristling energy. You said you had something to tell us. What is it? She took a deep breath. She looked at Mark, who gave her an almost imperceptible nod. The whole thing felt RSC'd. Mom, Dad, she began, her voice trembling slightly. Mark's been given a fantastic opportunity at work. A promotion. It's a big step up. Vice President of Operations for the entire Western region. Oh, Clara, that's wonderful, I exclaimed, my face breaking into a smile, the knot in my stomach momentarily forgotten. That's just fantastic. Paul, did you hear that? Congratulations, son, Paul said, a little stiffly, but he extended his hand across the table. That's really something. Mark took his hand, a firm, quick shake. Thank you, Paul. It's been a long time coming. Clara reached over and took my hand. Mom, there's more. This promotion, it's based in their new corporate headquarters. It's in a different state. The smile froze on my face. The good china seemed to blur. What do you mean? It's in Denver, Mark said, his voice flat. The corporate campus is just outside of Denver. I'm supposed to start in a month. Denver, I repeated, the word feeling foreign in my mouth. That's across the country. That's a 2-day drive. We'll fly, Mom, Clara said, her voice gentle, as if she were explaining something simple to a child. It's only a 3-hour flight. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I looked from Clara to Mark. You're talking about moving. You're talking about leaving. It's a job, Susan, Mark said, picking up his fork. He root deeding, as if he'd just announced he was going to the grocery store. People relocate all the time. It's normal. I looked at Paul, searching for a reaction. He was ring at his plate, his face unreadable. I could see the slight tremor in his hand as he held his fork. And what about your job, Clara? I asked, my voice rising in pitch. What are you going to do? I can transfer, she said. My company has an office there. It's all been worked out. It sounds like you've got it all planned, Paul said, his voice quiet. There was a finality to it. You've already made up your minds. Dad, we didn't want to worry you, Clara said. We wanted to tell you in person. This is a good thing. It's a great opportunity for Mark. For us. Opportunity, I spat out. You call this an opportunity. You're taking my daughter away from me. Mom, it's not about taking me away. It's about our future. Our life. The future. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. What about the present? What about your family? We're here. We've always been here. And you're just going to leave. Mark slammed his fork down. The sound was loud, jarring. That's it. Isn't it? It's always about what you want. You don't see about what's good for me or Clara. It's about your needs. My needs. I was so shocked I couldn't form a sentence. My needs the same as any mother's. My needs for my family to be together. Together, Mark stood up, knocking his chair back a few inches. Together means living in a shabby house in the suburbs, dealing with your constant, ring presence. I want more for my wife than what this town has to offer. I want a real life. Mark, stop it. Clara cried. But he was on a roll. I'm not like you, Paul, he said, turning to my husband. I'm not content to just get by, to live with the minimum. I'm not going to end up a failure, coming home to a house I can rely afford, listening to my wife complain about her ungrateful children. A heavy, thick silence fell over the room. Paul's face was pale, his jaw clenched. I had never seen such a look of raw pain in his eyes. It was as if Mark had physically struck him. And in a way, he had. Mark, I said, my voice a whisper. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Now. He looked at me, and for a moment I thought he was going to argue. But Clara was already standing, her face a mess of TRS. She grabbed her purse. "Mom, you're being unreasonable," she said, her voice breaking. "We came here to tell you good news." "This is not good news," I said, pointing a trembling finger at the door. "This is a betrayal. You're both leaving. You're walking out of my life for a job." "Mom, it's not like that." "Then what's it like? Clara, explain it to me." I looked at her, this woman I had raised, had fed, had worried over for 32 years. I saw a stranger. "Because it looks like you're choosing a pay raise over your own mother." "I'm choosing my husband," she said, her voice firming. "And for the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own happiness." Mark grabbed her hand. "Come on, Clara. Let's go. There's no point in this." They walked out of the dining room, the sound of their footsteps echoing down the hallway. The front door rattled shut, and the silence they left behind was crushing. I stood there for a long moment, looking at the dishes of half-eaten food. The chicken was getting cold, the mashed potatoes congealing on the plates. I felt like my world had just fallen apart. Paul still hadn't moved. He was ring at the spot where Mark had been standing. "Paul," I said, my voice shaking. "Say something." "Like what?" he asked, his voice hollow. "What is there to say? He's right. I am a failure. I couldn't give them a better life. I couldn't give you a better life." "Don't you dare say that," I said, the anger finally breaking through the shock. "Don't you dare let that hateful little man get into your head. It's not true." But he wasn't listening. He was lost in a dark place I couldn't reach. "I worked 40 years, Susan, and what did I have to show for it? A house that's falling apart, a CAR that's older than our daughter, and my own son-in-law sees me as a joke." "He's not your son-in-law," I said, sitting back down, the strength draining out of me. "He's just a man who married my daughter. And now he's taking her away. He's ambitious. I never was. I should have been. I should have taken that job at the plant manager's office. I should have pushed for more." He turned to me, and I saw the TRS in his eyes. "You should have married someone who could have given you the world. I have given you nothing." He stood up and walked out of the room, and I let him. I didn't have the energy to chase after him. I looked at the table, at the roast chicken, a dish I used to make for a happy family. The golden skin was dull. The smell of it, which had once been so wonderful, now just made me feel nauseous. I couldn't lose my daughter. I couldn't. The thought of her being hundreds of miles away, of her not being a phone call away, of missing her birthdays, her Christmases, her life. It was a physical pain, but it was a pain I had to into CRRY, because the first battle of this war was already lost. The table was cold, the food was ruined, and the empty chairs across from me told the whole story. The family I had so reefully tended to had just broken apart. The fluorescent lights of the accounting firm hummed their usual low, buzzing tune as I stepped off the elevator. It was a sound I'd grown so accustomed to over the years that I'd rely it anymore, like the ticking of a clock in a quiet room. But this morning, it seemed louder, more grating. The echo of Mark's cruel words and the look on Paul's face followed me. Clinging to the back of my mind like a burr, I forced a smile as I walked past the reception desk. The receptionist, a young woman named Lisa, gave me a cheerful wave. "Good morning, Mrs. Caldwell. EARLYSTART today. Just wanted to get a jump on things," I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own EARS. I clutched my tote bag a little tighter and made my way down the corridor to my office. My office. It was a corner one, with a window that looked out onto the city skyline. IDA rented over 14 years of service, 14 years of late nights and missed dinners. It was mine. IDBA rely set my bag down when I heard a familia, our voice from the doorway. "Susan, you're here." EARLY. It was Greg. He was leaning against the doorframe, a paper cup of coffee in each hand. He was about my age, with thinning brown hair and a kind, boyish face that had made him seem trustworthy from the moment I'd met him. I had hired him 6 years ago, a fresh-faced graduate from a state school. I'd mentored him, taught him the nuances of the business, recommended him for promotions. He was my protege, my right hand. "Couldn't sleep," I said, giving him a wry smile. "Figured I'd get ahead START on the Richardson file. The audit's coming up, and I want to make sure everything is in order." He walked in and placed one of the coffees on my desk. "Black, no sugar, just the way you like it." He sat down in the chair across from me, His posture relaxed. Tough night, you look a little tired. A little, I admitted, wrapping my hands around the WARM cup. Clara and Mark came over for dinner. It didn't go well. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, he said, his brow furrowing with concern. Everything okay? They're not splitting up or anything. No, nothing like that. I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter, but I didn't mind. Mark got a promotion. A big one. They're moving to Denver. Greg's eyes widened. Denver, that's quite a move. How does Clara feel about it? She's putting on a brave face, but I can tell she's torn. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I didn't handle it well. I lost my temper. I told Mark he was taking her away from me. Well, you're her mother, Greg said, his voice soothing. It's natural to feel that way. You've been the rock of this family for so long, Susan. It's a shock to the system when things start to change. I nodded, grateful for his understanding. Greg always knew what to say. He was loyal, dependable. He was the one person at work I could truly trust. I just need to focus on something else, I said, sitting up straighter. Let's talk about the audit. Have you had a chance to review the preliminary reports from the branch offices? I've gone through most of them, he said, pulling a tablet from his briefcase. There are a few discrepancies, but nothing major. I think we're in good shape. Sterling wants to see a streamlined, efficient process. He's been leaning on us hard to get our numbers up. I know, I said. I've been getting his emails. He's a numbers man. That's all he's residential about. As we spoke, the office began to fill with the sounds of other employees arriving. Phones root ringing. Keyboard RDS began to clatter. The rhythm of the day was beginning. I was in the middle of reviewing a spreadsheet when my office phone rang. It was the direct line, the one reserved for senior management, Susan Caldwell. I answered, Susan, it's Arthur Sterling. Arthur Sterling was the regional manager, a man with a reputation for being cold and efficient. He was not a WARM person. He was the sort of man who looked at a balance sheet the way other people looked at a beautiful painting. Good morning, Mr. Sterling, I said, keeping my voice neutral. What can I do for you? I need to see you in my office at 10 o'clock. We have a few matters to discuss regarding the department's restructuring. Restructuring? I felt a flicker of unease. I wasn't aware there was any restructuring planned. It's a fluid situation, Susan. 10 o'clock. Sharp. And he hung up before I could ask another question. I looked at the receiver in my hand, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Fluid situation. That was a phrase managers used when they were about to drop a bomb on you. Greg was still in the room, looking at me with an unreadable expression. What was that about? I don't know, I said, my voice a whisper. He wants to talk about restructuring. In his office. At 10. He stood up, his face betraying nothing. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Probably just a new reporting structure for the incoming audit. He walked to the door and paused. I'll be in my office if you need anything, Susan. You know that. I nodded, but a strange, unsettling thought was forming in my mind. Why did Greg seem so calm? So collected? He was usually the first person to start worrying when Mr. Sterling called a meeting at the hour until 10 o'clock crawled by. I tried to focus on the reports, but my mind kept drifting. I called Paul, but it went to voicemail. I left a brief message, telling him I'd call him later. I thought about Clara, wondered if she was at work, if she was as miserable as I was. I wondered if she'd call to apologize. She hadn't last night. At exactly 10 o'clock, I walked down the hall to Mr. Sterling's office. His door was open. He was sitting behind his large mahogany desk, and standing to his left was a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, impeccably dressed in a sharp gray suit, with the arcade hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes were the color of flint. Sit down, Susan, Mr. Sterling said, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk. This is Vanessa Reed. She's a management consultant we've brought in to help us optimize our operations. I shook her hand. Her grip was cold and firm. Nice to meet you, Vanessa. Likewise, she said, her voice clipped. I've heard a lot about your department, Susan. It's one of the most successful in the region. I smiled, but it was a forced smile. We try. Mr. Sterling Clea read his throat. Vanessa has been reviewing our structure for the past few weeks, Susan. She's come up with some ideas that I believe are essential for our future growth. The words hung in the air. Past few weeks. A consultant had been poking around my department for weeks, and no one had told me, as you know, Vanessa said. The industry is changing. We need to be more agile, more streamlined. To that end, I'm recommending a co-management structure for your department. Co-management, I echoed, a cold wave of dread washing over me. I don't understand. I'm the department head. You agree, Mr. Sterling confirmed, leaning four-way road. But we agree, bringing in a fresh perspective. Vanessa will be acting as your co-manager, focusing on efficiency and process improvement. You'll still be responsible for the day-to-day client relations. He said it as if he were doing me a favor, as if he were giving me a gift by taking away half of my authority. You're demoting me, I said, my voice flat. You're bringing in a stranger to run my department. I wouldn't call it a demotion, Vanessa said, her tone smooth as glass. Think of it as a partnership. A partnership to drive this company four-way road. I have a lot of experience with this, Susan. I've turned around departments twice the size of yours. I looked at Mr. Sterling, urging for some sign of resistance. But his face was a mask of corporate indifference. This had been decided long before I walked into this room. I was just here to be informed. I need to think about this, I said, standing up. I need to process this. Of course, Vanessa said, offering me a thin smile. I'll be moving into the office next to yours. We'll have a lot to discuss. I'm looking forward to working with you, Susan. I didn't reply. I just walked out of the office, my legs feeling like lead that I didn't go straight back to my office. I took a detour, walking down a back corridor that led to the break room. I just needed a moment to collect myself, to let the anger subside. I was standing by the coffee machine, my back to the door, when I heard voices. I told you it would be fine, a woman's voice said. It was Vanessa. I recognized the clipped, condescending tone. She didn't see it coming, did she? Another voice replied. This one was deeper, more familiar. It was Greg. My blood ran cold. I stood frozen, a paper cup in my hand. Rely able to breathe. She was too wrapped up in her personal problems to notice, Vanessa said with a soft, cruel laugh. Her daughter moving away. Her husband being a doormat. It was the perfect distraction. Greg chuckled. She never suspected a thing. She thinks I'm her loyal protege. A real lapdog. You played it perfectly, Vanessa said. Playing the sympathetic friend while you were feeding me all the data I needed. When this is all over, the promotion is yours. You'll be the sole department head. Don't worry about Susan, Greg said. She'll be out of here within a year. She's not a fighter. She'll take her severance and cry all the way to her empty house. They both laughed, a quiet, conspiratorial sound that echoed in the empty break room. I heard their footsteps begin to move. I had to move. I ducked into a small storage closet just off the break room, pulling the door shut behind me. I stood in the dark, surrounded by boxes of office supplies. My heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I heard the door of the break room swing open and then close. Their voices faded away. I stayed in that closet for a long, long time. I don't know how long. Minutes. Maybe an hour. My mind was a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. Greg had been spying on me. He'd been feeding information to Vanessa, this corporate vulture, while pretending to be my friend. He'd played me for a fool. When I finally emerged, the break room was empty. I walked back to my office on autopilot. I closed the door and sat down at my desk. My hands were trembling. I picked up the phone and called Paul. Hello, he answered, his voice tired. Paul, I said, and my voice broke on his name. Something happened at work. Something terrible. What is it? You okay, Greg? I said, the name tasting like poison in my mouth. I heard him talking to the new consultant. He's been working against me, Paul. He's been betraying me. For weeks. Are you sure? He asked, the same cautious tone he always used. Maybe you miss a road. You've been under a lot of stress, Susan. With Clara, don't, I said, cutting him off. Don't you to retell me I'm being paranoid. I heard it with my own ears, Paul. He laughed at me. He said I'd be out of here in a year. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Paul sighed. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. People in high-pressure jobs say things. Maybe he's just trying to protect himself. Protect himself. I was yelling now. I couldn't help it. He's been feeding her information, Paul. He's trying to take my job. And you're telling me it's a misunderstanding. I'm just saying you should be careful before you accuse someone, he said, his voice infuriatingly level. You don't know the whole story. You just heard one conversation. It could mean anything. I slammed the phone down. I couldn't listen to him anymore. For the first time in my life, Paul was not on my side. He wasn't even trying to be. He was so lost in his own guilt, his own self-pity, that he couldn't see the war being waged right in front of him. I read at the closed door of my office. Greg's office was just down the hall. I could see the light on under his door. He was in there, probably laughing with Vanessa, planning my downfall. I wanted to sit down there and confront him. I wanted to scream at him, to ask him how he could do this to me after everything I'd done for him. But I knew it would be a mistake. I had no proof. It would be my word against his, and he had Vanessa and Mr. Sterling on his side. That I had to be smart. I had to be strategic. I had to play his game, just for a little while. I took a deep breath and unlocked my desk drawer. I pulled out a small notepad and a pen. I wrote down the date, the time, and what he wrote. I wrote down every word, every cruel laugh. I was going to build a case. Not against Greg. Against all of them. I put the notepad back in the drawer. I straightened my papers on my desk. I looked at my reflection in the RK monitor of my computer. The woman ring back at me was tired, red, and humiliated. But she wasn't defeated. Paul was wrong. I was not paranoid. I was not imagining things. I was a woman who had just been betrayed by someone she trusted, and I was not going to take it lying down. I was going to fight. Even if it was a fight, I was destined to lose. I was going to make them see that they couldn't just push me aside, that I was more than just a desk and a title. The lights in the office seemed to hum a little louder. I took a sip of the now-cold coffee Greg had brought me. It tasted bitter, just like everything else. But I drank it anyway. I was going to need the strength. The doorbell rang at 11 in the morning on a Saturday. I was still in my robe. Ring at a sink full of dishes I hadn't had the energy to wash. Paul was in the backyard, tinkering with the lawnmower. It was his way of coping, fixing things that didn't need fixing. I opened the door and found Clara standing on the porch. She was in jeans and a loose sweater, her hair down. She looked pale and fragile, like she hadn't slept in days. Clara, I said, surprised. What are you doing here? I thought you were helping Mark pack. I told him I needed to do some errands. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I needed to see you, Mom. We didn't exactly end things on a good note. I closed the door behind her. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Come into the kitchen. I'll make some tea. She followed me, her footsteps soft on the hardwood floor. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where the family had always gathered. It felt strange, having her here without Mark. Like a piece of the puzzle was missing. I put the kettle on and took out 2 mugs. So, I said, keeping my voice light. How are the moving plans coming along? Don't do that, Mom, she said, her voice tired. Don't pretend everything is normal. That's not why I came here. I turned to face her. Then why did you come? She took a deep breath, wrapping her hands around the empty mug in front of her. I came because I need to talk to you. Really talk to you. Without Dad here. Without Mark. Just you and me. I sat down across from her. The kettle was rooting to whistle in the background. All right. I'm listening. She read at the table for a long moment. I'm read, Mom. I'm read about the move. I'm read about the fighting. I'm read about everything. I know, sweet ART, I said, reaching out to touch her hand. It's a huge change. It's normal to be read. No, you don't understand. She pulled her hand away. I'm not just read about the move. I'm read about my marriage. I'm read that Mark and I, we don't see each other the same way anymore. I leaned back in my chair. This was new. This was something she'd never told me before. What do you mean? Mark is so focused on his career, she said, her voice growing stronger, more desperate. It's all he talks about. Every decision we make is about his job, his reputation, his next promotion. And I'm just supposed to follow along, like a piece of luggage. He loves you, Clara, I said, parroting the same words I'd always used to reassure her. He's just ambitious. It's not a crime. Maybe it's not, she said, looking up at me with TRS in her eyes. But I don't know if it's what I want anymore. I don't know if I want to be the one who's always following. The kettle stopped whistling. I got up and poured the hot water into the mugs, buying myself a moment to think. I brought them back to the table and sat down. Clara, I said ruefully. When you were a little girl, you used to say you wanted to be a doctor. You had that little plastic stethoscope. You'd walk around the house taking everyone's temperature. I remember, she said, a faint smile crossing her face. Then in high school, you decided you wanted to be a writer. You had that notebook. You'd write poems and stories, and you'd read them to me at night. They were beautiful. The smile faded. I gave that up a long time ago. You did, I said. And I never asked you why. I just assumed it was part of growing up. But now I wonder, did you give it up because you wanted to? Or because Mark wanted you to? She was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice really a whisper. He didn't want me to work. At first, he said it was unnecessary, that he could provide for us, that my job was just a hobby. I felt a surge of anger, hot and fierce. He said your career was a hobby. It was a long time ago, she said quickly, trying to backtrack. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It's not a big deal. Of course it's a big deal, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Your life is a big deal. Your ambitions, your dreams, they matter. She looked up at me, and there was a coldness in her eyes I'd never seen before. Do they? Mom, do they really? Because I don't remember you ever saying that before. The words hit me like a slap. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Mrs. Henderson's ART show. I was in 8th grade. I painted a picture of the backyard, and I was so proud of it. I wanted you to come to the show. I begged you. I felt my heart sink. I remembered that show. I remembered it very clear. I had a presentation that night. I said, my voice weak. A huge one. For the company. I couldn't miss it. That's right, she said, her voice cold. You couldn't miss it. So you sent Dad instead. And he sat in the back row and fell asleep. He actually fell asleep, Mom. Clara, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you never came, she said, her voice rising. It was always the same. School plays, parent-teacher conferences, birthdays. You were always at work. Always chasing some promotion or some client. I was just part of the background. That's not fair, I said, my own anger rising to meet hers. I was working to provide for you. I was building a future for this family. Everything I did was for you. No, she said, shaking her head. That's what you told yourself. But you did it for you, Mom. You loved being the breadwinner. You loved the titles and the recognition. You loved it more than you loved being a mother. The accusation hung in the air between us. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, hot and stinging. How can you say that to me? I said, my voice breaking. I gave up so much for you. I sacrificed. You sacrificed me, she said, her voice suddenly quiet. You sacrificed our time together so you could have that life. And now, I'm doing the same thing. I'm sacrificing my own dreams so I can have a life with Mark. And I hate it. She root crying, her tears falling freely onto the table. I wanted to reach out to her, to hold her, to tell her it would be okay. But I couldn't. I was too frozen, too wounded. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I didn't come here to attack you. I came here because I needed to understand. I needed to know why you made the choices you made. I needed to know if I'm making the same mistakes. I took a shaky breath. Clara, when I was your age, I was terrified. I was terrified of being poor, of being trapped. My own mother, she never worked. She stayed home, and she was miserable. She took out all her unhappiness on me and my father. I swore I would never be like that. And now, she asked, and now? I said, the TRS finally rooting to fall. I realized I was so afraid of becoming her that I became something else entirely. I became a woman who couldn't be there for her daughter. I became the woman who missed the ART show. We were both crying now. The tea sat untouched on the table between us. I'm not moving to Denver, Mom, she said suddenly, her voice raw. I looked up, stunned. What? I'm going to tell Mark I'm not going. I can't. I can't just leave everything behind. I can't just be his shadow. Clara, no, I said, shaking my head. You can't do that. Your mariage, my mariage is already falling apart, she said. And I realized something when I was talking to you. I'm not your mother. I'm not trapped in a loveless house. I have options. I can stay here. I can find a job that makes me happy. I can finally do the things I've been wanting to do. I reached across the table and took her hand. I don't want you to give up your mariage, Clara. I want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. Then help me, she said, her eyes pleading. Help me figure out how to be happy. Because I don't know how anymore. I've spent so long making other people happy that I've forgotten what it feels like to want something for myself. I looked at my daughter, this woman who was so much stronger than she gave herself credit for. I saw the same fear in her eyes that I'd seen in my own when I was her age. And I realized that I hadn't been a very good example. I'd shown her how to be driven, how to be successful. I'd never shown her how to be satisfied. I was so afraid of losing you, I said, my voice raw. When you told me about the move, all I could think about was how empty my life would be without you here. I didn't think about how you felt. I didn't think about what you wanted. Mom, I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I was so selfish. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to choose between your husband and your mother. That wasn't fair. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm not going to choose. I'm not going to be like you. I'm not going to sacrifice my family for a career. But I'm also not going to sacrifice myself for someone else's career. I'm not going to make the same mistakes. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know yet, she said. But I'm going to talk to him ARK. I'm going to tell him the truth. And if he can't accept that, then maybe we need to rethink everything. I squeezed her hand. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. I promise. We sat there in the kitchen for a long time, drinking our cold tea and talking about nothing. About old memories, about silly things Clara had done as a child. About the time she tried to cut her own hair and ended up with a lopsided bob. About the time she'd gotten lost in the mall and I'd found her crying in the toy store. It felt good, being able to talk to her like this, without the weight of resentment and anger hanging over us. It felt like we were finally seeing each other for who we really were. When she finally stood up to leave, she hugged me tightly. I'm glad we did this, she said. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweet-art, I said. And I'm so proud of you, of the woman you've become. She smiled, a real smile, the first one I'd seen from her in weeks. I'm proud of you too. I know you did the best you could. I know you worked hard for us. I wish we'd talked about it sooner. So do I said that after she left. I went into the living room and sat down on the sofa. Paul came in from the backyard, his hands covered in grease. Was that Clara? He asked. Is everything okay? She's going to be fine, I said. We're all going to be fine. He looked at me, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. But I didn't see a re. For the first time in days, I felt a small ember of hope. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't even a plan. But it was something that I realized that I had spent so much of my life trying to protect my family from the truth that I had forgotten how to be honest with them. Clara was right. I had been so focused on providing for her that I had failed to be present for her. And now, I had a second chance. I wasn't going to waste it. The war room was the conference room on the third floor, the one with the long mahogany table and the leather chairs that made your back ache after an hour. I had sat in that room for hundreds of meetings, but today, the air felt different. Thinner. More dangerous. I arrived early, as I always did. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me late. Vanessa was already there, her tablet perched in front of her like a weapon. She was reviewing something on the screen, her fingers tapping away with the calm efficiency of a predator. Susan, she said, not looking up. Good, you're here. We can get sta route. I was under the impression the meeting wasn't for another 10 minutes, I said, taking my seat at the opposite end of the table. Time is money, she said, finally glancing up at me. I like to startearly. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. I said nothing. The door opened, and Greg walked in. He didn't look at me. He took a seat beside Vanessa, his posture relaxed, as if he belonged there. As if he had always belonged there. Arthur Sterling came in last, his tie perfectly straight, his expression unreadable. He took the head of the table, the seat that commanded the room. Thank you all for being here, he said, his voice smooth and professional. I know we're all busy, so I'll get right to it. Vanessa, if you would. Vanessa stood up, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She tapped her tablet, and the RGE screen at the front of the room illuminated with a series of RTS and graphs. Numbers. They were always about the numbers. After a thorough analysis of your department's performance over the past 6 months, she began, I have identified several areas of significant inefficiency. The data Clara shows that while your team is capable, there is a lack of strategic direction. We are losing ground to our competitors, and our profit margins have been shrinking steadily. ISTA read at the RTS, my mind racing. Some of the numbers were accurate, but many of them were twisted, presented in a way that made things look worse than they were. These figures are misleading, I said, keeping my voice calm. The dip in profit margins is seasonal. It happens every year. We always recover in the second quarter. Vanessa tilted her head, a condescending smile playing on her lips. I'm sure you believe that, Susan. But the data doesn't lie. The fact is, your department is operating with outdated methods. You've been relying on personal relationships rather than on data-driven decisions. That's not sustainable. Personal relationships are what keep clients loyal, I shot back. You can't just reduce a business to numbers. There are people involved. Real people. If they want to pay for a relationship, they can hire a therapist, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with disdain. We are a business. Our goal is profit. I looked at Greg, searching for some sign of solidarity. He was sta ring at his hands, his face expressionless. He wasn't going to help me. He was on their side. Vanessa has recommended a restructuring of your team, Mr. Sterling said, cutting through the tension. Based on her analysis, we need to reduce the department by 2 senior positions. Effective immediately. The room went silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. 2 senior positions, I repeated. Who are you talking about? Vanessa smiled, a cold, practiced smile. We've identified the 2 most redundant roles. One is the senior account manager for the Eastern region. The other is the senior analyst position. I knew exactly who they were talking about. 2 of my most dedicated employees. A man named Robert, who had been with the company for 15 years, and a woman named Diane, who had just returned from maternity leave 3 months ago. You can't do that, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts. Robert has been here for 15 years. He knows everything about our clients. Diane has a child at home. She just came back. She's one of the best analysts on the team. It's a business, Susan, not a charity, Mr. Sterling said, his voice cold. We can't afford to be sentimental. If you disagree with the decision, I'm happy to discuss it further. But the decision has been made. I looked at Greg again. He was finally looking up, and I saw it in his eyes. A flicker of guilt, quickly suppressed. He knew. He had known all along. He had helped them choose the victims. Greg, I said, my voice a whisper. Did you know about this? He hesitated. A long, painful silence stretched between us. I was consulted, he said finally, his voice flat. I gave my assessment of the team's skills. You gave your assessment, I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. You helped them fire Robert and Diane. You helped them destroy 2 lives. They're not being destroyed, Susan, Vanessa interjected, her tone sharp. They're being let go. There's a difference. They'll receive severance packages. They'll find new jobs. It's the nature of the business. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is some kind of strategic move. This is cruelty. Pure and simple. Sit down, Susan, Mr. Sterling said. His voice harrowed. This meeting is not over. I'm done with this meeting, I said. I'm done with all of it. I walked out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel their eyes on my back, judging me, dismissing me. I didn't see I went straight to Greg's office. I needed to see him. I needed to hear him say it to my face. He came in a few minutes later, closing the door behind him. His face was pale, his jaw tight. What was that? I asked, my voice low and fierce. What are you doing, Greg? These are our people. We trained them. We fought for them. I'm doing what I have to do to survive, Susan, he said, his voice cracking. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I enjoyed it? I think you enjoyed it plenty, I said. I heard you, Greg. In the break room. I heard you laughing with her. His face went pale. What are you talking about? I heard you, I said, stepping closer. I heard you telling her how easy it was to play me. How I was too wrapped up in my personal problems to see what was coming. I heard every word. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. You used me, Greg, I said, the anger in my voice giving way to something else. Something that felt a lot like grief. I trusted you. I brought you into this company. I taught you everything I knew. And this is how you repay me. It's not personal, Susan, he said, his voice pleading. It's just business. You said it yourself. This is how the world works. You have to look out for yourself. No, I said, shaking my head. That's how you think the world works. You think it's a game. You think the only thing that matters is winning. But you're wrong. The people you stepped on to get here, they matter. Robert matters. Diane matters. I matter. You're emotional, he said, his voice hardening. You always were. That's your problem. You read too much about the people. You let it cloud your judgment. Maybe I do read too much, I said, my voice breaking. But at least I read. At least I'm not a coward who hides behind his ambition. We stood there, facing each other like enemies. The man who had once been my friend, my confidant, was now a stranger. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute, that I felt like I was looking at a ghost. I'm sorry, he said finally. The words hollow and emptied. I don't want your apology, I said. I want you to remember this. Remember what you did to get where you are. And know that it cost you a person who would have done anything for you. I walked out of his office, leaving him standing there in the silence. I couldn't be or to look at him anymore. I went back to my office and closed the door. I sat down at my desk, my hands trembling. I looked at the photo of Clara on my desk, her smiling face a reminder of what mattered most. And I realized that I had been fighting the wrong battle. I had spent so much energy trying to protect my career, to hold on to a position that was being taken away from me piece by piece. But what was I really fighting for? A job that didn't love me back, a company that would replace me without a second thought. I thought about Robert, who had given 15 years of his life to this company. I thought about Diane, who had come back from maternity leave only to be told she was redundant. And I realized that I was no different from them. I was just another cog in a machine that didn't care about anything except profit. I picked up the phone and called Clara. She answered on the second ring. Mom, she said, her voice filled with concern. Is everything okay, Clara? I said, my voice steady for the first time all day. I need to tell you something. I think I'm going to lose my job. Mom, what happened? I told her everything. About Greg, about Vanessa, about the meeting, about the betrayal that had been brewing beneath the surface for weeks. I didn't hold anything back. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Mom, I'm so sorry, she said finally. That's awful. But you can't let them do this to you. You have to fight. I don't know if I have the strength to fight anymore, I said. I'm tired, Clara. I'm so tired of fighting. Then don't fight, she said. Come over. Stay with us for a while. We can figure this out together. I thought about it. The idea of leaving the office, of just walking away from all the toxicity, was tempting. But I knew I couldn't do that. Not yet. There was still something I needed to do. I can't leave, I said. Not like this. I need to see this through. For Robert and Diane. For myself. Promise me you'll be careful, Clara said. Promise me you won't do anything reckless. I promise, I said. I'll call you later. I hung up the phone and sat in the quiet of my office. The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune. The city skyline spar clad in the distance. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. I opened my drawer and pulled out the notepad. I looked at the words I had written the day I'd overheard Greg and Vanessa in the break room. I added today's date and a brief description of the meeting. I was building my case, piece by piece. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I didn't know if it would even matter. But I knew I had to do something. I had to make them see that I wasn't just a pawn in their game. I was a person, and I was not going to go down without a fight. I closed the drawer and took a deep breath. The war was just beginning. And for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to face it. I had not been in the attic in years. It was a space for forgotten things, a graveyard of old furniture and boxes of memories no one wanted to throw away. The air was thick with dust and the faint, cloying scent of mothballs. Paul was already up there, his silhouette visible in the dim light that filtered through a small, grimy window. I don't know why you keep all this stuff, he called down to me, his voice echoing in the cramped space. We could have sold half of it at a yard sale and made a small fortune. It's not about money, I said, climbing the last few steps. Some things worth holding on to. He was standing by a stack of boxes, a flashlight in one hand, a crowd in the other. Your brother said the deed to the lake house was in a brown file box. Do you remember seeing it? I shook my head, brushing a cobweb from my hair. I don't remember anything about a deed. But then again, your memory is better than mine when it comes to paperwork. He grunted, an STA root prying open a box. It was full of old clothes, faded and crumpled. This is yours. From before we were married. You kept a lot of things, Susan. I knelt down beside him, picking up a worn wool sweater. It was the one I'd worn on our first date, a simple blue thing with a hole in the sleeve. I'd been so nervous that night, so unsure if he'd even like me. Now, looking at it, I felt a pang of nostalgia so RP it almost hurt. Look at this, Paul said, pulling out an old photograph from another box. It was a picture of us on our wedding day, young and hopeful, our faces full of dreams we hadn't yet Rened to abandon. I can't believe you kept that, I said, a smile touching my lips. Of course I kept it, he said, his voice softening. It's the best day of my life. We sat there in the silence for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down on us. Then he moved on to another box, his movements brisk and businesslike. We need to find that deed, Susan. Your brother keeps asking about it. He says the property tax is due next month, and he can't do anything without the paperwork. I sighed, annoyed by my brother's constant demands. He was the eldest, the one who had inherited the family's financial burdens. But he'd also inherited the family's secrets. I had always suspected there was more to my father's estate than he'd let on. ISTA root pulling boxes APART, my fingers brushing against old textbooks, kitchenware, and finally, a dusty leather briefcase that had belonged to my father. It was stiff and cracked with age, the gold initials on the front, RLY, worn away. I'd seen it 1,000 times, but I'd never thought to look inside. What's that? Paul asked, noticing the briefcase in my hands. It's my father's, I said, my voice hushed. He used to see ARRY to work every day. I tried to open it, but it was locked. The clasp was stubborn, rusty with years of disuse. I pried at it with a fingernail, then gave up and grabbed the Kraub AR from Paul. He watched with raised eyebrows as I wedged the metal into the seam and yanked. The clasp cracked open, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Inside were stacks of old letters, receipts, and a thick manila envelope. The envelope was labeled in my father's neat, precise handwriting, for Susan. Do not open until I am gone. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Paul, I said, my voice trembling. Look at this. He moved closer, peering over my shoulder. What is it? I opened the envelope fully, my fingers trembling. Inside were bank statements. Dozens of them, spanning decades. They were from a bank I'd never heard of, a small institution on the other side of town. These are savings accounts, I said, scanning the numbers. Big ones. There's a lot of money here, Paul. What was my father doing with all this money? Paul took one of the statements and studied it. This account was opened in 1980. That's the year you were born. He was saving for your future. But I thought he died with nothing, I said, shaking my head. My brother always said he had nothing. We sold the house to pay off his debts. Maybe your brother didn't know, Paul said slowly. Or maybe he did. I felt a chill run down my spine. My brother had always been secretive. He had a way of twisting the truth to suit his needs. I had trusted him, believed him when he said there was nothing left. But what if he had lied? I pulled out my phone and dialed his number. It rang 3 times before he picked up. Susan, his voice came through, cautious and right. What do you want? I need to talk to you, I said, my voice RP, about Dad. About his accounts. There was a long pause on the other end. What accounts? The ones I just found in the attic, I said. The savings accounts that you conveniently forgot to mention when we were settling his estate. He sighed, a heavy, tired sound. I was hoping you'd never find those. Did you know about them? I asked, my voice rising. Did you know he had all that money? I knew, he admitted, his voice low. He told me about them before he died. He asked me to look after them, to make sure you were taken care of. But I made some mistakes. Bad investments. I lost most of it. You lost it? I was shaking now, the anger boiling over. You lost Dad's life savings. How could you? I didn't mean to, he said, his voice pleading. I was trying to grow it. I was trying to do the right thing. I thought I could turn it into something bigger. But the market crashed, and everything fell apart. I was too ashamed to tell you. I was too ashamed to admit I'd failed. You lied to me, I said, my voice a whisper. For 20 years, you lied to me. You let me believe Dad died with nothing. You let me struggle. You let me work myself to the bone because I thought I had no safety net. I'm sorry, Susan, he said, and I could hear the TRS in his voice. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't make it better, but I was young, and I was stupid, and I didn't know how to fix it. There's no fixing this, I said, and I hung up the phone. I sat there in the dusty attic, my father's briefcase in my lap, the weight of the betrayal crushing me. My own brother had taken my father's legacy and squandered it. He had let me live my life in the shadow of poverty and fear, all because of his pride. Susan, Paul said, his voice soft. Are you okay? No, I said, looking up at him with TRS in my eyes. I'm not okay. My whole life, I've been fighting. I've been working so hard to build something for myself, for Clara, for this family. And all the time, there was a safety net I didn't know about. A safety net my brother destroyed. Paul sat down beside me, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. You can't change the past, Susan. You can only move four-way road. You're strong. You've always been strong. I don't feel strong, I said, leaning into him. I feel like everything I've believed in has been a lie. We sat there for a long time, the dust settling around us, the weight of the secrets finally coming to light. I thought about my father, the quiet man who had worked his whole life to provide for us. He had trusted my brother with his legacy, and my brother had failed him. He had failed all of us. Paul, I said finally, I need to tell you something. About my brother. About what he did. You don't have to explain, Paul said. I know him well enough. But you don't know the worst of it, I said. When Dad died, my brother told me there was nothing left. He told me he had to sell the house to pay off the debts. I believed him. I was so young, so SCA read. I didn't question it. And now, Paul asked, and now I know the truth, I said. My brother lied to me. He lied to protect himself. And I let him. I let him get away with it. Because you trusted him, Paul said. Because he was family. That's not a crime, Susan. That's just human nature. I wiped my eyes, trying to compose myself. I've been so angry at Clara, I said, my voice breaking. I've been so angry at Mark. I thought they were the ones betraying me. But they were just making the same mistakes I made. Trusting the wrong people. Hiding the truth. People make mistakes, Susan, Paul said. That's what makes us human. What matters is what we do next. I looked at him, this man who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had never once complained about my long hours or my stress. He was flawed, just like the rest of us. But he was loyal. He was honest. He was the one person in my life who had never betrayed me. I'm sorry, I said, taking his hand. I'm sorry for all the times I pushed you away. For all the times I made you feel like you weren't enough. It's okay, he said, squeezing my hand. I know you were just trying to protect us. We both were. We sat there in the dim light of the attic, the ghosts of the past swirling around us. My brother's betrayal, my father's secrets, my own foolishness. It all felt like a heavy weight, pressing down on me. But as I looked at Paul, I realized that the weight wasn't unbearable. I had seen ride it for so long without realizing it. And now that I knew the truth, I could finally let it go. I want to go see my brother, I said. I want to talk to him. Face to face. Are you sure that's a good idea? Paul asked, his voice tinged with concern. I need to hear him say it, I said. I need to look him in the eye and see if he's truly sorry. Not just for the money. For the lies. Paul nodded slowly. I'll come with you. No, I said, shaking my head. This is something I need to do alone. He looked at me, and I could see the worry in his eyes. But he didn't argue. He just nodded and helped me to my feet. I left the attic, carrying my father's briefcase with me. It felt heavier than before, weighed down by the truth it contained. But as I walked down the stairs, I felt a strange sense of relief. The secrets were out, and no matter what happened next, I knew I would be okay. The drive to Clara's house felt like a pilgrimage. I had no plan, no RSCD speech. I just knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. The betrayals at work, the secrets in my family, the distance growing between me and everyone I loved. It had to stop. I had to stop it. I pulled into their driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the modest house they'd bought 2 years ago. It was a nice place, a sta rooter home with a small front porch and a patch of lawn that Mark was always complaining about. I could see Clara through the front window, moving about the living room. She looked tired. She always looked tired these days. I knocked on the door, and she opened it with a look of surprise. "Mom," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "I didn't know you were coming. Is everything okay? I need to talk to you," I said. "And to Mark. Is he here?" She nodded, her brow furrowed with worry. "He's in the back, packing boxes. We were just getting ready to start the final preparations for the move." I followed her into the living room. The place was a mess of Riboe road boxes and packing tape. Mark emerged from the hallway, a roll of bubble wrap in his hand. He looked surprised to see me, and not in a good way. "Susan," he said, his voice flat. "This is a surprise." "I know," I said, sitting down on the arm of the sofa. "I know I should have called, but this is something I needed to say in person." Clara sat down across from me, her hands clasped in her lap. Mark remained standing, his arms crossed. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I began, my voice steady despite the nervous flutter in my chest. "About Clara. About you. About all of us." "Is this another lecture?" Mark interrupted, his tone sharp. "Because I really don't have the energy for it right now." "Mark, please," Clara said, her voice strained. "Let her speak." I took a breath and continued. "I know I haven't been supportive. I know I've been difficult. When you told us you were moving, I only thought about myself. I only thought about how it would affect me. And I'm sorry for that." Mark uncrossed his arms, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "You're apologizing?" "Yes," I said. "I am. I love my daughter, and I love you, Mark. You're part of this family. And I've been so afraid of losing you both that I've pushed you away." Clara's eyes glistened with tears. "Mom, let me finish," I said gently. "I came here to tell you that I understand. I understand why you need to go. This is your life, your future. I don't have to like it, but I have to respect it." Mark was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice softer than before. "Susan, I know I said some things at dinner. Things I shouldn't have said. About your husband, about your life. I was angry, and I took it out on you. I appreciate that," I said. "But I didn't come here for an apology. I came here to tell you something else. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Clara leaned forward, her eyes searching mine. "What is it?" I turned to her, my heart aching. "I know you're afraid, Clara. I know you're red that you're making the same mistakes I made. But you're not. You're so much stronger than I was. You're not running away from anything. You're building something. And I'm proud of you." Clara root crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Mark moved to her side, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I know I haven't always been there for you," I continued. "I know I missed things I should have been there for. But I want you to know that I'm going to try harder. I'm going to be better." "Mom, you don't have to do this," Clara said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I do," I said. "Because I've made mistakes. Big ones. And I need to start making things right." Mark read his throat. "Susan, I'm sorry too. I was focused on my career, and I put Clara in a difficult position. I made her feel like she had to choose. That's not right. It's not about whose fault it is," I said. "It's about moving four-way road together." We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of the unspoken words finally lifting. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There was still hurt, still doubt. But it was a beginning. I stood up to leave, but Clara grabbed my hand. "Wait, Mom. There's something I need to tell you." "What is it, sweetheart?" She exchanged a glance with Mark, and I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. "Resolved, we're not moving," she said. I blinked, certain I'd miss a road. "What?" Mark and I talked about it, she said. "A lot. And we decided that we can't leave. Not like this. We need to figure things out here first. We need to fix our marriage before we can think about rooting over somewhere else." Mark nodded, his face serious. "I got the promotion, but I can do it remotely. It's not ideal, but it's possible. I'm not going to let my career destroy my family." I was stunned. I had prepared myself for a difficult goodbye, for the long-distance calls and the lonely holidays. I had never expected this. "But what about Denver?" I asked, my voice Relia whispered. "It's not going anywhere," Clara said. "It'll still be there next year, or the year after that. Right now, I need to be here. I need to figure out who I am, what I want. And I can't do that if I'm running away. ISTA root crying. I couldn't help it. The relief was so overwhelming that I couldn't hold it back. Are you sure? I asked, looking at Mark. Are you sure you're okay with this? I'm not going to lie and say it's easy, Mark admitted. But Clara's right. We need to fix things here first. We need to be honest with each other. That's more important than any promotion. I reached out and pulled Clara into a hug. She held me tightly, and I could feel her TRS on my shoulder. I love you, Mom, she said. I'm sorry for all the hurt I caused. You didn't cause it, I said, pulling back to look at her. We all did. But we're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out together. I left Clara's house feeling lighter than I had in weeks. But there was still one more stop I needed to make. One more confrontation I couldn't avoid. The drive to my brother's house was short. He lived in the same small house he'd grown up in, the one our father had left him. It was a modest place, a little run down, but it was his. He was sitting on the porch when I pulled up, a cigarette in his hand. Susan, he said, his voice flat. I was wondering when you'd show up. Were you? I asked, climbing the steps. You didn't seem surprised when I called. I'm not, he said, stubbing out his cigarette. I knew it was only a matter of time. You always did have a knack for digging up the past. I sat down on the chair beside him, not bothering with pleasantries. I need to know the truth. All of it. What did you do with Dad's money? He sighed, leaning back in his chair. I told you. I lost it. Bad investments, bad decisions. I was young and stupid. That's not what I asked, I said. I asked what you did with it. Did you spend it gambling, drinking, what? He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something like shame in his eyes. I was trying to build a life, he said. I was trying to be something more than just Dad's failure of a son. I thought I could make something of myself, but I wasn't good at it. I was never good at anything. Except lying. I said, my voice cold, except lying. He repeated, his voice hollow. I lied because I couldn't face the truth. I couldn't face what I'd done to you, to Dad's legacy. I sat there for a long moment, letting the anger simmer. But it wasn't just anger I felt. It was sadness. Sadness for the man sitting beside me, who had let his pride destroy him. I'm not going to forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm tired of CA-ing this anger. I'm tired of letting it control me. What are you saying? He asked, his voice worried. I'm saying I'm done, I said. I'm done fighting with you. I'm done letting your mistakes define my life. I'm going to move forward with or without you. He read at me, his eyes unreadable. I don't deserve that, Susan. I don't deserve your forgiveness. You don't, I agreed. But that's not the point. The point is, I'm not going to let your betrayal destroy me. I'm stronger than that. And I'm done letting you have power over me. I stood up to leave. He didn't try to stop me. I drove home in silence, the streets blurring past me. The anger was still there, but it was quieter now. More manageable. I had said what I needed to say. When I got home, Paul was in the kitchen, making dinner. He looked up as I walked in, his eyes searching my face. How did it go? He asked. It went, I said, sitting down at the table. Clara and Mark, a rent moving. They're going to work things out here. And I told my brother I was done fighting with him. Paul set down the spoon he was holding. Susan, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. It's a start, I said. There's still a lot to fix. A lot of damage to repair. But it's a start. He came over and sat beside me, taking my hand in his. We'll do it together, he said. We always have. I looked at him. This man who had been my partner for so many years. He was not perfect. He had his own secrets, his own regrets. But he was here, and that was what mattered. Paul, I said, my voice soft. We need to talk. About us. About everything. He nodded, his grip tightening on my hand. I know. I've been thinking about it too. About all the things I've been hiding from you. All the mistakes I've made. I need to hear it, I said. I need to hear all of it. He took a deep breath, then began. He told me about the business deal gone wrong, the money he'd lost trying to impress a client. He told me about the shame he'd felt, the fear of being seen as a failure. He told me about all the nights he'd lain awake, wondering how to tell me the truth. When he was finished, I was silent for a long moment. The anger was there, but it was tempered by something else. Understanding. Paul, I said finally, we've both been hiding from each other. We've both been protecting ourselves from the truth. And it's T-ring us apart. I know, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I should have told you. I should have trusted you. You should have, I agreed. But I should have trusted you too. I should have told you about my fears, my doubts. Instead, I just pushed you away. What do we do now? He asked. That I took a deep breath. We start over. We tell each other the truth, no matter how painful it is. And we work together to fix what's broken. He nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. I love you, Susan. I've always loved you. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I said, squeezing his hand. We're going to get through this. Together. I looked out the kitchen window at the street outside. The neighbors were pulling into their driveways, the sounds of evening settling over the neighborhood. It was ordinary. It was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home. The hotel room was small and impersonal, the kind of place you stayed in when you didn't want to be reminded of home. I had been there for 2 nights, since the fight with Paul. I needed space. I needed to think. I sat on the edge of the bed, ring at the phone in my hand. Clara had called 3 times. Paul had left 2 voicemails. I hadn't answered any of them. I wasn't ready. I needed to figure out what I wanted, what I was going to do next. That the room was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning unit. It was a sterile kind of quiet, the kind that made you feel like you were floating in a void. I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. The woman ring back at me looked tired, her eyes rimmed with red from crying. But there was something else in her expression, something like resolve. I had spent my whole life fighting. Fighting for my career, fighting for my family, fighting to prove that I was enough. And what had it gotten me? A job I was about to lose, a daughter who had moved away, a husband who had lied to me. I had fought so hard, and I was still losing. But maybe fighting wasn't the answer. Maybe the answer was to stop, to let go, to accept that I couldn't control everything. I picked up my phone and called Clara. She answered on the first ring. Mom, her voice was frantic. Where are you? Dad said you left, and you're not answering your phone. We've been so worried. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice steady. I just needed some time, some space to think. Where are you? She asked again. I can come get you. No, I said. I need to do this on my own. But there's something I need to tell you. Something I've decided. What is it? She sounded red, like she was bracing for bad news. I'm going to take the severance package, I said. I'm not going to fight them anymore. There was a pause on the other end. Mom, are you sure? You've worked there for so long. You built that department. I know, I said. But it's not my department anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. I'm tired, Clara. I'm tired of fighting for something that doesn't love me back. Mom, you don't have to do this, she said, her voice pleading. We can figure something out. You can find another job. You're brilliant. Everyone knows that. Maybe I don't want another job, I said. Maybe I want something different. Something simpler. She was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice softer. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I said. But I'm going to figure it out. For the first time in my life, I'm going to figure out what I want. Not what I think I should want. What I actually want. I could hear her crying softly on the other end. I'm so proud of you, Mom. You're so brave. I'm not brave, I said, a sad smile touching my lips. I'm just tired. But I think that's okay. I think being tired is allowed. When I hung up, I felt lighter. The decision had been made. There was no going back. I took a deep breath and called Paul. He answered immediately. Susan, he said, his voice cracking. Where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. I'm at the Eastwood Inn, I said. Room 214. I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon. You can come if you want. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He said that he was there in 15. He stood in the doorway of the hotel room, looking lost and uncertain. He had RK circles under his eyes, and his clothes were rumpled, like he'd slept in them. Susan, he said, stepping inside. I'm so sorry. I never should have lied to you. I was so red of losing you that I pushed you away. You didn't push me away, I said, sitting down on the bed. I pushed you away. I was so focused on my own fears, my own pain, that I didn't see what I was doing to us. He sat down beside me, his hands clasped together. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can fix this. But I want to try. I want to try so hard. I looked at him, this man I had spent my life with. He was flawed, just like me. He had made mistakes, just like me. But he was here. He had come when I called. That had to count for something. I'm not going to leave you, I said. I thought about it. I thought about walking away and STA rooting over. But I realized that running away is just another kind of lie. And I'm done with lies. He looked at me, hope flickering in his eyes. What do you want? Susan, what do you really want? I want a quiet life, I said. I want to wake up in the morning and not feel like I have to fight the world. I want to spend time with my daughter and my grandchildren. I want to sit on the porch and watch the sunset with you. I want to be happy, just happy. That's all I've ever wanted for you, he said, his voice thick. That's all I've ever wanted for us. We've been so busy surviving that we forgot how to live, I said. But I think it's time we Leah Rened. I think it's time we STA root over. He reached out and took my hand. Together, I nodded. Together. The next morning, I went back to work. Not to fight, but to close the door on that chapter of my life. I walked into Mr. Sterling's office and told him I was taking the severance package. He didn't try to talk me out of it. I think he was relieved. I packed up my office, a small CA Redboe road box of personal belongings. The photo of Clara, the small plant I'd kept on my desk, the certificates and AWA RDS I'd accumulated over the years. I left the rest behind. The files, the spreadsheets, the endless stream of reports. It all felt so insignificant now. As I was walking out, I ran into Greg. He was standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable, his hands shoved into his pockets. Susan, he said, not meeting my eyes. I heard you were leaving. I am, I said. I'm done. He nodded slowly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I looked at him, this man who had once been my friend, my protege. I felt the familiar anger rising, but I pushed it down. I was done with angered. Goodbye, Greg, I said, and I walked past him without looking back. I drove to the bank and opened a savings account in my own name. It wasn't much, just a small amount of money I'd managed to save over the years. But it was mine. It was a START. When I got home, Paul was waiting for me. He had made dinner, a simple meal of pasta and salad. The table was set with the good china, the one with the gold rim. What's all this? I asked, surprised. I wanted to do something special, he said. To celebrate our new beginning. I sat down across from him, feeling a RMTH spread through my chest. It wasn't happiness exactly. It was something quieter. Something like peace, Clara called. Paul said, passing me a bowl of pasta. She and Mark are going to stay. They're going to work on their mariage. She said they're going to START counseling. That's good, I said. That's really good. She also said she wants to START writing again, Paul added. She's going to take a class at the community college. I smiled, thinking of the little girl with the notebook, writing poems and stories. I'm so proud of her. Paul reached across the table and took my hand. We're going to be okay, Susan. We're going to be just fine. I looked out the kitchen window at the street outside. The neighbors were out walking their dogs. Children were playing in the yards. The sky was a soft shade of pink and orange. It was ordinary. It was mundane. It was exactly what I needed. That I realized that I had spent so much of my life chasing the extraordinary, chasing success and recognition, that I had forgotten how to appreciate the ordinary. But the ordinary was where life really happened. The ordinary was where love and joy and peace lived. I think I want to START volunteering, I said, the thought coming to me suddenly. At the library or the community center. Somewhere I can help people without all the stress and the politics. That sounds perfect, Paul said. Whatever you want to do, I'll support you. I looked at him, and I saw the man I had fallen in love with all those years ago. He was older now, grayer, more worn down by life. But he was still the same man. The man who had held my hand when I was SCA red, who had cheered me on when I was ambitious, who had never stopped loving me. I love you, I said. The words simple and true. I love you too, he said. More than you'll ever know. We finished our dinner in comfortable silence, the sounds of the evening settling around us. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was everything I had ever wanted. Later that night, I sat on the porch, watching the STARS come out. Clara had texted me a picture of a notebook she'd bought, the cover covered in flowers. She said she was going to fill it with stories, just like she used to. I smiled, my heart full. I thought about the road that had brought me here, the betrayals and the secrets, the fights and the TRS. It had been a hard road, but it had led me to this moment, to this place of quiet acceptance. I had lost so much, but I had found something, too. I had found myself. The house was quiet now, the kind of quiet that settles in after a long storm. Paul was in the living room, reading the newspaper, his glasses perched on the end of his nose. I could hear the soft rustle of the pages from where I sat in the kitchen, sipping a cup of tea. Clara had come by earlier. She was glowing, a lightness in her step that I hadn't seen in years. She told me she had signed up for the writing class and had already written 3 short stories. She said Mark was supportive, that they were talking more, really talking, and that it felt like they were finally on the same team. I listened to her, my heart swelling with pride. She had found her way back to herself. I had found my way back to myself. We were both learning, both growing, both figuring out what it meant to be happy. After she left, I stood at the kitchen window, watching the street. The mailman was making his rounds. A young mother was pushing a stroller. A dog was barking in the distance. It was so ordinary, so mundane. And for the first time in my life, I realized that was exactly what I wanted. Paul came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," I said. "I almost lost everything. My job, my daughter, my marriage. I was so busy fighting that I forgot to appreciate what I had." "But you didn't lose it," he said, his voice soft. "You fought for it. You fought for us." I turned to face him, looking into his tired, familiar eyes. "I don't want to fight anymore, Paul. I want to live. I want to be happy. I want us to be happy." He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "We can do that," he said. "We can do that together." The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee and sat on the porch, watching the sunrise. The sky was a soft shade of pink and orange, the kind of sky that promised a beautiful day. I thought about my brother, about the anger I still held toward him. I had told him I was done fighting, but I realized that being done fighting meant letting go of the anger too. It would take time. It might take years, but I was willing to try. I looked at the house, at the garden Paul had been tending, at the porch swing we'd bought together. This was my life. Not perfect, not without its scars, but mine. And I was ready to live it. The ending was not a grand finale, not a dramatic resolution. It was a quiet moment, a simple acknowledgement that life would continue, that there would be more challenges, more heat, more joy. I was no longer afraid of what was coming. I was ready for it. I took a sip of my coffee and smiled. The sun was rising, and so was I.